Welcome to the Speed and Nguyen's Deep Dive podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we are plunging into, well, a cinematic phenomenon, really. It's ignited pop culture debates everywhere, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh yeah, this one's been unavoidable.
Absolutely. And you've supplied us with a fascinating stack of sources, everything from really sharp critical reviews, passionate fan discussions, even some incredible behind-the-scenes stuff.
Right.
So our mission on this deep dive is basically to unpack what makes this film such a record-breaking event. We're going to explore its themes, the controversies around it, and, what its massive success actually means for the whole superhero landscape.
Exactly. We're going to look at, well, why critics and audiences seem to have had such wildly different reactions.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And how it managed to just shatter box office records.
Mm-hmm.
Plus the whole debate around fan service, is it good, is it bad?
Mm-hmm.
The dynamic between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, obviously. And yeah, believe it or not, maybe find some surprising depth under all that R-rated humor and action.
Okay, let's unpack that right away. Starting with the initial reception, because it really is, like you said, a tale of two very different scores.
It really is.
Critically, it's mixed. Rotten Tomatoes has it certified fresh, somewhere around 78 to 81%, which sounds pretty good on the surface.
Right. Certified fresh sounds solid.
But then you look at Metacritic, and it's hovering around 55, 56. That puts it squarely in their mixed or average category.
Yeah, and what's interesting there is that 40% of the reviews were specifically mixed, and another, 11% were outright negative. So it's not just a few outliers.
So what do you think is driving that stark contrast between how critics saw it and how much audiences seem to just love it?
That's, I think, the core question here, isn't it? It makes the film a really fascinating case study. The critical feelings were just all over the map.
Yeah.
You had positive reviews calling it an irreverent romp with a surprising soft spot for a bygone era. Some even called it the ultimate love letter to Marvel fans.
Wow.
People saying it was the shot in the arm that the MCU needed, or just pure, unadulterated fun.
Yeah.
So for some critics, it seems like it delivered something unique, maybe hitting that specific formula they wanted.
But then the flip side. And they're often very vocal about it. Critics who felt it was just a whole lot of hot air and not much else.
Right. That phrase stands out.
Or describing the humor as corporate-based, maybe relentlessly juvenile. One review even called it flavorless gruel. Ouch.
Yeah, flavorless gruel's pretty harsh. Others felt it had no higher purpose than to congratulate its audience. It feels like they were looking for something maybe more substance beyond just the laughs or the references.
And that's exactly the disconnect, isn't it? Because if you flip over to the audience reception, well, they saw something completely different, something they just overwhelmingly loved.
Phenomenal numbers.
Yeah.
A 97% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes and an A Cinema score.
Which comes right from people walking out of the theater. Right, so it's immediate reaction.
Exactly. It's often seen as a really strong indicator of, broad mainstream appeal. And this isn't just a small gap. It's a huge example of how critics, who often value things like narrative innovation or thematic depth, might be increasingly out of sync with what a lot of the mainstream audience wants, which might be more comfort, wish fulfillment, that direct engagement with characters they already know.
And you see that audience love translating directly into money. I mean, huge money.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are staggering.
The film pulled in, $444.1 million globally? And $211 million just domestically on its opening weekend.
Which makes it the largest R-rated opening ever. It didn't just beat the first Deadpool's opening.
Yeah.
It absolutely crushed it. Deadpool opened at $133.7 million.
Wow. And it wasn't just R-rated records either. It was the sixth biggest opening weekend for any movie, period.
Right. Plus, it pushed Marvel's total global box office past the $30 billion mark, which is just mind-boggling.
And it wasn't just a domestic thing either, right? It had significant global reach.
Yeah, definitely. Top international markets like China pulled in $24 million, the UK $22.1 million, Mexico $18.7 million. These aren't small numbers. It shows it really hit a nerve globally, not just in the usual superhero strongholds.
Okay, so that commercial success, that massive audience love, it brings us right back to the heart of that critical divide. The whole fan service conundrum.
Ah, yes, fan service, the big debate.
Because for many fans, this movie was exactly what they wanted. You see it called a love letter to the X-Men movies. Packed with unmatched fan service, apparently plenty of surprises, brilliant cameos that had people gasping in theaters.
Right. It reportedly treated that old Fox Marvel source material with respect, giving proper send-offs to characters people loved, like Elektra, Blade, even X-23.
And apparently even redeeming the failure of that Gambit movie that never quite happened properly.
Yeah, giving that character a moment.
So the question becomes, is this fan service genuinely a love letter? Or, like some critics argue, is it just, a cynical marketing ploy wrapped up in nostalgia? Where do you think that line is?
It's such a fine line, isn't it? And maybe the line is different for everyone. The fan service here, it forces us to think about this growing tension in big blockbusters. When does paying homage just become, well, weaponizing nostalgia?
Weaponizing nostalgia. I like that phrase.
Because some critics definitely felt that way. They called it a carnival of in-jokes, self-references, and reality breaks with no higher purpose.
Right.
Or a shameless piece of self-congratulation. One review even said it was hell for people who review these for a living.
Wow. That suggests it was just exhausting for them trying to analyze it while the movie's constantly winking.
Exactly. Like trying to critique something that's already critiquing itself or pretending to.
And that corporate angle is where the meta-commentary gets really interesting, potentially. There's this interpretation floating around that the film's real antagonist isn't some supervillain. It's Disney.
Right, the corporation itself. That the constant meta jokes and cameos are actually about the Fox acquisition, about Marvel maybe dealing with its own multiverse fatigue.
But then the counter-argument is, if the satire feels too micromanaged or maybe cheap because, as one quote puts it, the movie pretends to make fun of it as they do it.
Does it actually land? Does it lose its satirical power?
Exactly. Can it successfully mock the system while being, a massive product of that system?
But it's a huge question. It really speaks to how authentic the satire feels. If it seems too calculated, too safe, it can actually undermine the critique it's supposedly making. Becomes less like genuine commentary and more like performative self-awareness, maybe.
It's definitely complex. And right at the center of all this are the two leads, Deadpool and Wolverine.
The main event.
Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. I mean, his portrayal is consistently praised for being incredibly faithful to the comics.
Right.
Embracing the fourth wall breaks, the language, the violence, the sarcasm, the pansexuality.
He really embodies that character. He's described as the unbridled id of every superhero fan.
That's a great description. He's like the ultimate fanboy mouthpiece on screen.
He is. But that very strength, that complete embodiment, also leads to that common criticism you hear. The Ryan Reynolds shtick.
Ah, yes. The shtick.
Some people feel Reynolds just plays himself in every role now, and that his whole quirky, witty, sarcastic inside joke break the fourth wall fest can get, well, tiresome or repetitive for some viewers.
But for others, that's exactly what they sign up for. That's the appeal.
Absolutely. And then you have all those specific in-jokes and meta-references layered on top, mentioning Chris Evans' age, Hugh Jackman's love of Broadway, his divorce.
Even the Hulk hands showing up.
Right. And the product placements are almost part of the joke, too. Hyundai, Kia, Spam, Jack Daniels, Amazon Fire Phone, Jim Beam, Heineken. It's relentless, but kind of fits the character's vibe.
It does. That unbridled id description really nails Deadpool. But while Reynolds dominates, the other half of this equation is, of course, Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine. A huge deal.
Massive.
Yeah.
And the reaction to his performance seems overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, people calling it perfection, his strongest turn ever as Wolverine, delivering real emotional weight while still honoring the sort of melancholy farewell we got in Logan.
And fans were just ecstatic to finally see him in that classic, comic-accurate yellow and blue suit.
Finally. After all these years, so what do you think really drove Jackman back after Logan felt so definitive?
Yeah, it's a really interesting decision for an actor, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sources point to a few things. His genuine love for the character, obviously. Yeah. The chance to finally work with Ryan Reynolds in this specific dynamic, which they both talked about wanting for years.
Okay.
And well, let's be honest, probably a significant financial incentive, as one source put it rather bluntly, a shitload of money.
Okay, fair enough. Can't ignore that.
And he'd also said previously he'd only return if it was within the MCU, so maybe there was a strategic element to fitting into the bigger picture.
So what makes this pairing work so well on screen? There's such different energies. Described as an amusing oil and vinegar combo?
A yin to each other's yang. That contrast is key. Deadpool's constant quipping and flippancy just continually irks Wolverine.
Which is inherently funny.
Totally. But beneath that, there's apparently a real poignancy. The idea that both characters are equally damaged and need the other to achieve redemption.
So there's heart under the claws and jokes.
It seems so. And the fight sequences? Pure, manic, gamer-style ultraviolence, lots of repetitive slashing, apparently.
Okay.
But also moments like a hilarious scene where they're just stabbing each other set to, "You're the one that I want," from Grease.
Okay, that sounds perfectly Deadpool.
And then their combined force being unstoppable, set to Madonna's like a prayer,
Yeah.
leaning into the absurdity in the spectacle.
What's really interesting, though, is how the film apparently manages to carry, like you said, a genuinely heartfelt core despite all the R-rated chaos.
Yeah, it's described as being shamelessly sentimental underneath it all. At its heart, it's apparently an earnest story about the need to belong and about flawed heroes seeking redemption.
Which maybe elevates it beyond just being, pure spectacle or jokes.
That seems to be the argument, yeah. It grounds the characters.
So if we look at Wade's journey specifically, his arc seems to be about struggling with purpose after, getting rejected by the Avengers.
Right. He became a shell of his former self, ended up as a used car salesman, of all things.
Wow.
And Vanessa apparently left him because she felt he needed to think bigger than himself. So his journey here is about accepting his own worth, realizing he already mattered to his friends, whether he was an Avenger or not, and ultimately saving his own timeline.
It feels like it builds on the themes from the previous movies then. Deadpool was about love.
Deadpool 2 was about family.
And this one focuses on home and purpose. Even amidst all the craziness, that core message about finding your place seems pretty compelling.
Exactly. And similarly, Logan's journey deals with his depression over losing his X-Men, his inability to move on, which is symbolized by him refusing to take off the Wolverine costume.
Ah, interesting symbolism.
So his arc is about finding a new purpose, maybe letting go of some of that crushing guilt.
And there was that matter-antimatter chamber scene mentioned in the sources.
Yeah, that scene is pretty direct symbolism. Wade wanting to matter, Logan wanting to forget. It's a simple but apparently powerful visual for where they both are emotionally.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Moving beyond what we see on screen, there's a fascinating story behind how this whole thing actually got made. Let's talk about the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Sure.
Sean Levy's direction is a big part of this, right? He has this strong partnership with Ryan Reynolds. This is their third movie together.
Right, after Free Guy and the Atom Project.
So he clearly gets Deadpool's humor, shows creativity with the camera. But then you also see criticism arguing Levy is maybe a Reynolds stooge, not a director with a vision.
Yeah, suggesting his films can sometimes be subpar because of that dynamic. It's that question of creative control when a director and star are that closely aligned.
It's a valid point. And beyond Levy, the visual effects by Framestore sound like they were absolutely crucial.
Oh, massively. They delivered over 420 final VFX shots, plus like 900 more pre-Vs and post-V shots, which is basically planning and refining. Huge amount of work.
And the opening credits alone sound like a spectacle. Stylized violence, graphic, beautifully art-directed blood compared to Jackson Pollock paintings.
Yeah, apparently quite striking. Even showing Deadpool abusing Wolverine's adamantium skeleton with blunt bones, just setting the tone immediately.
That sounds intense. And the Deadpool core sequence, that sounded huge too.
Yeah, involving traditional crowd simulation techniques, lots of blue screen, digital doubles for scenes with maybe 30 to 50 stunt performers on set.
But the real scene stealer seems to have been Dogpool, the dog Peggy.
Apparently so. Her performance was outstanding, just captured in camera. Then they digitally added the goggles and apparently magnified her eyes, made them more cartoon-like for expression.
That's interesting. Using the real performance as the base, then enhancing digitally.
Yeah, smart way to do it. And the VFX team also tackled some really complex kind of mind-bending stuff, like the Time Ripper sequence.
Right, involving Cassandra's atomization. What was that exactly?
Described as a distressing disintegration. They basically had to digitally rebuild her entire physiology as she fell apart on screen.
Wow.
And they created this effect of superheated internal plasma for Deadpool and Wolverine, showing their healing factors fighting it off.
But the biggest challenge sounded like that scene where Cassandra invades Paradox's mind.
Yeah, her fingers emerging from his face, a brutal intrusion. Apparently, that effect was so tricky it required them to basically invert 15 years of their pipeline work for how they handle facial deformation dynamically.
That's incredible. Reversing 15 years of workflow for one effect shows how innovative they had to be.
Definitely pushes the boundaries of what's possible with VFX.
Okay, finally, we kind of have to address the elephant in the room for some fans. The plot holes and continuity debates, especially around Logan.
Ah, yes, the timeline headaches.
There's this whole discussion about whether Logan from 2017 is still canon, specifically that plot point about the mutant cure in corn syrup.
Right, because Logan is set in 2029, but Deadpool 2 was supposedly 2018. And if that cure exists in the corn syrup by 2029, how does Deadpool still have powers? Or Wolverine, for that matter?
Exactly. So how are people trying to square that circle? What are the explanations floating around?
Well, there are a few theories. Some suggest maybe Deadpool's mutation is artificial or his healing factor is just so strong the corn syrup cure wouldn't affect him.
Okay, possible.
Others argue that the Wolverine we see in Deadpool and Wolverine is just from a completely different timeline anyway, so Logan's events don't apply to him.
Oh, or the catch-all explanation?
Or, the TVA, the Time Variance Authority from the MCU gets involved, and you can basically hand-wave away any inconsistency with timey-wimey bullshit, as the movie itself apparently jokes.
Right. Use the multiverse mechanics to just say, don't worry about it.
Pretty much. And stepping back, a lot of people acknowledge that the whole Fox X-Men movie timeline was already, well, notoriously messy. It has a million holes.
That's true. It was never perfectly consistent.
So maybe Deadpool and Wolverine isn't even trying to fix that mess. Maybe it's just embracing the chaos, leaning into the messiness as part of the fun, part of the meta-commentary, letting the audience in on the joke that, yeah, this stuff doesn't always perfectly line up.
That feels very Deadpool, actually.
It does, doesn't it? So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what does it all mean? Deadpool and Wolverine really is this fascinating case study in modern blockbusters.
Yeah.
It's critically divisive, a real mixed bag there, but commercially, an undeniable juggernaut.
Absolutely. Caught somewhere between being a heartfelt homage and this really biting self-parody.
It delivered on that promise of an R-rated superhero team-up, definitely pushed some boundaries, all while having to navigate these complex corporate mergers and the state of cinematic universes.
So the big question we leave you with is, does Deadpool and Wolverine's runaway success signal a genuine shot in the arm for the MCU? Does it prove that maybe this blend of meta humor and fan service is the path forward, especially as they try to evolve?
Or is it maybe just a reflection of an audience that's craving pure entertainment, pure wish fulfillment above everything else, even if this story doesn't really matter quite as much as the overall experience and seeing these characters together?
It's something to think about. Is this movie a sign that superhero cinema is genuinely evolving in a new direction? Or is it just a really, really clever way to laugh at its own potential stagnation while, making an absolute fortune?